You might be a writer who loves to write emotional scenes, or you might be a writer who really hates it. So when we think of emotions, sometimes we think of anger or crying, but there's all types of emotions, right? There's all kinds of emotions. So I think most writers actually don't mind writing emotions. They just don't think that they're very good at it. So what we're going to be talking about this week is writing emotions. So how to do it well, and what are some things to avoid so that it doesn't become such a chore or something that you actually dread doing. So what we're going to cover today is how to prepare the reader for that big climactic emotional moment. Welcome to the Julia Monte channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Monte and I'm a women's fiction author. Okay, so as a women's fiction author, I spend a lot of time writing about emotion, okay, because women's fiction deals with relationships, and a lot of times relationships, humans, right, we're emotional beings, and we have 10,000 emotions in one day, right? Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean, right? So you might get up in the morning, you might go downstairs or to your kitchen to make a cup of coffee, and all of a sudden you turn on the faucet and the water is spraying everywhere and something broke. So your first emotion is shock, then dread, the water's getting everywhere, and then maybe, I don't know, anger, like what the heck, what's going on here, right? So before you've even had your coffee, in the first 5 minutes you've had a bunch of emotions. Then you might have other emotions, right? You might be bored, you might get angry, you might get frustrated, you might be lonely. So there are tons of emotions that we go throughout our day, and just think about all the different emotions that you have in a week, and some of them are the same emotions and some of them are just new emotions over the week that you tend to experience. So your characters are the same, right? And when you are telling a story, one of the things that you do have to be careful of is that fiction is not real life. Okay, so in real life, you might be talking to a friend, and maybe your friend has had some kind of tragedy, right? Their grandmother passed away or something happened, and you hear about it maybe when it does happen, right? So you read about it on social media, or the person calls you or sends you a text and says, this happened and I'm really sad. Well, your first emotion on hearing this might be surprise or shock, because you didn't know that maybe grandma was ill or that whatever, right? So all of a sudden now you're just kind of surprised. You don't feel, you're probably sad for the person, obviously this is your friend, and you feel bad, but you're not going through the same emotion that person is. You probably never will, because it's their family member. But if you had gone through the preparation stage, let's say, if you had first heard that something happened, right? Maybe grandma fell down. A lot of people older people fall down, and when they fall down, they get hurt, they break a hip, or something happens, right? Sorry to tell you, that's just a sad, depressing, but I just want to show you the point, right? But so when this happens, right? Maybe if this person had let you know at that point, called and said, "Oh my God, my grandma fell." Is in the hospital. It's like, oh my God, there's your shock. Oh no, right? I'm really sorry. I hope grandma feels better. And then maybe you are with this person the entire time. You see them every day at work, and you hear the story, and you hear how maybe grandma's not making progress. Maybe things are getting worse. Maybe grandma gets an infection, and you see the tragic event unfolding as it does. And so then, and especially if you've bonded, right? If you're close to your friend, and you're close to his family members, then when something eventually does happen and grandma passes away, you're going to be just as sad and devastated as your friend. Maybe again, not quite, right? Because it's their family member, but you know what I mean. You're feeling it too. You've been there on the journey. You felt what they felt. You were sad when they were sad. And so it's not a shock when it happens. It's that sadness that you feel because things didn't go well, especially if there was maybe hope, right? Something could happen and something could go well. Same thing, and this is like, an emotion of grief or sadness, but it doesn't really matter what the emotion is. You could be writing a horror novel. You could be writing a thriller, right, where you're following what's happening with the evil person who's planning all kinds of fires all over town or something, right? And if you're following along in the journey with the main character who is trying to stop this or trying to find who the person is, or trying to do whatever, then when that big emotional moment comes, when that person fails, when that person burns, let's say, a building where it hurts a bunch of people, the main hero, the character, whoever your main character is angry, right? Is angry at himself because he could have stopped this, or he thought he knew. You're going to be there too, and you're going to understand the anger. So you need to prepare your reader for that huge moment, especially, not for the little emotional moments. So just the little things, the frustrations of every day, or those are actually important because they're feeding the reader. So they're preparing the reader for when that final climactic emotional moment happens. But those little ones, you don't need much preparation for. You're just showing what's happening. But the most important thing then to being able to make the reader connect with your character and follow along the story and actually experience the emotion that you want them to experience is to prepare them. So how do you prepare them? Well, you prepare them exactly as I was using in that example, right? Where you're going to let your reader follow the character along in the journey. You're going to give them information. You're going to take them on that little roller coaster of the little highs and lows, right? So it looks like things are getting better, and then they're not. And so you see the disappointment, and then you see that things are maybe starting to get better again, and the character has hope. So the more the reader is on this journey, seeing the highs and the lows and the eventual, and you've seen it probably in movies where it looks like, okay, everything is going to be fine, everything's going to be great, and then something else happens, and then it's not great, and it's a shock, and it's disappointing, and it's all kinds of things, right? Where the character is going through these emotions, and the reader's going through the emotions, and the viewer's going through the emotions if it's a movie, and then the reader is ready to be in that climactic moment with you, right? They're ready to cry also. They're ready to be angry also. They're ready to be disappointed. Whatever it is that you are trying to make the reader feel, they're going to feel it because they were there with you, with your character. Just last weekend, I watched the movie Fatherhood. I don't know if you've watched that, because some people in one of my writers group were talking about it, and I thought, well, let me go watch it. I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but I thought, this, it seemed they were saying it was a really sweet and heartwarming and kind of sad in some places. So I thought, okay, I'm going to watch it. And one of the things that happens in that movie, if you haven't watched it, I won't ruin it for you, but if you just watch the previews, you'll see this part anyways. But what happens is the main character is a guy, and he ends up being a single father because pretty much within the, first 5 minutes. So actually, as the movie starts, he is talking at his wife's funeral, and you find out, like, within those first 5 minutes that his wife dies shortly after childbirth, and all of a sudden he's stuck with a little baby. And that's the whole premise of the movie, is now he has a baby to raise on his own. He hasn't been the most responsible person in the world, and now all of a sudden he's responsible for a child, an infant. And my first reaction to that was like, wow, okay, well, if this is the way the movie is starting, yeah, I feel bad for him, but I'm not really connected with him. So where are we going from here? Because usually that would happen after I got to know the character and after I got to know his wife, and I would be sad that this happened to his wife, because the typical movies, you have the sort of the preparation, they're getting ready for the baby, and this is happening, and then maybe halfway through the movie, after they've planned and they were excited and they got their their crib and they set up the baby room, and all of a sudden then she dies. Well, you're gonna feel it so much, because you feel so bad. You were so excited about her having the baby, and now she's not going to be there for the baby. But that wasn't the way they did the movie. So I was curious. I'm like, okay, well, they didn't have that setup of the emotion, but the emotion actually ends up being different, because the story really isn't about her losing the baby, not her dying and not being able to take care of the baby. The story is, can he take care of the baby? Can he be a father to this little girl all by himself when he doesn't know what to do? And the way that this movie draws in the viewer is, if you're a parent, or even if you're not a parent, the everyday little challenges of the baby, bringing a baby home and having the baby cry and not knowing what to do, not knowing how to take care of this little human, right? So you start to bond immediately with him, because not only do you feel bad that his wife died and now he's responsible for a baby, but you also know what it's like. Like you bond with him, being a human, being a parent, and seeing how hard he's trying to be a good dad. And that's what connects you to him, right? And then you want him to succeed, and you see him failing in some parts and succeeding in some parts. But and the movie does prepare you for their climactic moment. So I won't ruin it, because you might want to see the movie, and I recommend it. It was a good movie, but the writers do have to prepare the readers or the viewers to be able to feel something when the emotion happens. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say today. So I'm going to be talking about this probably within the next week or so. It's going to be a series. We're going to talk first about things like this, like what to do to bring out the emotion as much as you can, and then again, some things that you want to avoid when writing emotions, because sometimes you might be writing and saying, well, I'm doing all this stuff, but it still doesn't seem to be working. And you don't want to slip into like melodrama and be overly dramatic, right? And have emotions that are blown out of proportion. So we'll talk about how to avoid doing that, and how to write, how to avoid the bad stuff and how to do more of the good stuff, so that you feel comfortable writing emotions. So join me again next Friday. If you liked this video, just please hit the like button and share it. And then join me again next Friday, and we'll talk about the next thing that I want you to know about emotions, and how to write great emotions and great books, great emotional scenes. So see you again next Friday.